Well, we get rolling on the Krueger Show. Hope everybody's having a phenomenal day today. Today is Thursday, May the 16th. Welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krueger Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. As today, the Krueger Show meets the Guy Haberman experience. What's up, Guy? How are you, man?
What's up, Larry? I'm good, man. I did a lot of math on Wednesday night, which is I would say not one of my strengths. So we went deep into the schedule, but I love it. I love the schedule release. It feels like it picked up a lot of momentum quickly. Like I don't remember the schedule release being a thing 4 years ago, maybe. But
it used to just be in the newspaper. We wouldn't even talk about it till the day after the schedule release, right? Because they would release it and then yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just read it in the CC Times.
Well, you're right.
Their schedule's out.
It's true. Forget about the schedule release. You used to not even know what the games were really until somebody, the week of, you'd be like, you turn on Monday Night Football and find out who's playing on Monday Night Football. Like, the Bears are on tonight. Okay.
Right. Now cool. They're interviewing Joe Buck and going month by month. What are you looking forward to in November? What are you looking forward to on Monday night in December? And Joe, sits there and says, you know what? I'm really looking forward to the Harbaugh Bowl. So a lot to get to. And of course, on my end, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. Emeryville, Corte Madera, open 7 days a week. Is there a sponsor you'd like to shout out, Guy, on your end? You don't give extra out. You're like, hey, they're sponsoring the pod and only the pod.
I got something to promote I get no money from it. And this person makes no money from it, but I think it's a cool service. I found it recently and I've been using it. It's just called teamcalendar.com. You can just go there. You click on your favorite team. It adds it to your Google Calendar or your phone calendar, whatever you want. I got in touch with the guy, Scott. I'm like, dude, what is this? He's like, it's just I kind of retired and I think it's fun. It's really useful. So
every game that's like the Niners play is now in the Guy Haberman calendar.
Yeah, I know. He told me. I'm not sure if it's fully populated by today because it takes him a little bit to get the schedules updated. But I think today or tomorrow. But like right now, as somebody who I like basketball, but I'm not hardcore in the NBA right now. I don't always know, like, is there a game tonight? Is there not? I just went to that website. I clicked NBA playoffs and it just puts all the games in my calendar.
Nice.
You can do it for every NFL team and whoever you want to do it for. I don't think he doesn't have college football yet, but I think he should. I told him he should.
I make a weekly calendar every Sunday and just kind of go through what I'm doing every single week. And then it never, and that's why it's somewhat inconsistent. Sometimes I do things exactly at the same time. Sometimes, because we're content creators and I want to make sure, like, let's say you and I are streaming, maybe, a certain day you've got something going on at a certain time. And then it's like, well, I'm available this time or this time. So I usually do it like once a week, like Sunday night. That's usually when I start putting together the calendar.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's my behind the scenes thing, but that would be nice. It'd be nice because I got to consult with both my kids. Hey, when are you playing baseball this week? All right, we're Wednesday at 4:00 at Akalani's. Okay, so I can't, busy then. I start going through the schedule and making my my week breakdown for streaming, for meetings, for kids events, just basically anything I've got to do. So it works, but that sounds actually very, very useful.
Super easy. Yeah. And then you can just know, what's going on. So anyway,
there you go.
For me, I would love it for college football. Cause what I do, like calling, like every week of college football season, usually cause I'm working, I like to know what else is going on. I put together a schedule, of the week. So I know, like, where are the biggest games? What time are they on? What channel are they on? I hate when Saturday comes around. It's too late to start trying to figure out what game do I want to watch. I got to go into the weekend knowing I really want to watch Michigan at noon. I want to watch that 3:00 Georgia game. I kind of want to see this whatever USC game that's at 7, just so I can, at least be a little available if I'm off that day to my wife and still watch the game. So it's like if I got a window from 3 to 5, we better hang from 3 to 5.
Get over here. It's time for quality time.
QT, let's go. So anyway,
5, because that's when the SEC game of the week comes on.
People do want my schedule, which I make, the NFL, my Niners and primetime schedule. So I will be making that available for the second year in a row to the
your
public.
schedule as far as when you're broadcasting.
No, no one has asked for that. My schedule in terms of I make a Niners schedule, and on that schedule has their games, it has their opponents' previous games, it has the rest differential. It also has all of the primetime games that week. So you just I can look at it and know what the Thursday, Sunday, Monday games are going to be that week. I don't think can I share with you here? Can I show you this?
The rest differential is I think that rest differential should be included in ESPN.com's, scoreboard every week. Why not? You're giving us the point spread. Give us the rest differential.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, I guess that's kind of part of if you're going to look at the point spread, you better go look at the rest differential. It's part of the advantage, or at least it once was.
How many people have
put it up if you want to throw it up on the screen? But
what's that?
I loaded it up if you want to throw my schedule, my homemade schedule up on the screen there.
Look at that. It's color coded.
Yeah. So green is a primetime home game. Red is a primetime road game. And
you are organized.
Yeah. There you go.
That is nice. That is really nice. Okay. I got a text from my buddy who's a big Niner fan, and we used to go to all the games together before I ever got into media. And now all my buddies they still gather and they barbecue and they, whatever, they get trashed and they go in there and then I'm sure they're arguing with each other. If times haven't changed, they're doing the same things we used to do, which is drink too much, maybe do other things as well. And then you get trashed and somebody's fighting usually by the end of the game. But he sent me a note. He's like, does the league hate the Niners? They play 4 teams coming off a bye, which I guess is the same as last season.
It is.
So Niners have a rest disadvantage against Kansas City, Dallas, Buffalo, Seattle, and Arizona. KC is off a bye. The Niners in that KC game will have played the previous Thursday. So KC will be coming off a bye, but the Niners will be on longer than normal rest as well. But you tweeted out that the net difference in rest day differential with the 49ers, you first put it out at -16. Now you're saying it's -23?
-22. Yeah, I put it out at -16. Schedule came out at 5. I went live at just before 6. And so I put that whole schedule that I just put up on the screen together in that hour. And so in my rush, I missed a couple of the Niners opponents that are coming off a Thursday game. So for example, one team you didn't mention there, the Bears game, the Niners are also at a -3 rest differential because the Bears play the previous Thursday. So it all adds. And Josh Dubow sent me a message from the Associated Press. Josh is very on. Yeah, he's one of my cross checkers for Guy Football Focus when it comes to Niners OTAs and camp practice grading. So he'll be cross checking me on Brandon Allen versus Tanner Mordecai this year. But he said I had -22. Double check it. So I double checked and he was right. So -22. It's the difference from 16 to 22 is that it now goes from less than last year to more than last year. Last year the Niners had a rest differential of -20, which was most in the NFL. And their 4 teams they played last year off of buys was also tied for the most in the NFL with the Rams.
Okay. And then it's funny. There's so much discussion about this. And then invariably there'll be somebody on Twitter who's like, all you whiners, what do you leave it alone? And then and then they'll pick some example of a game where the 49ers had a rest disadvantage that they won, and some other example of the 49ers had a rest advantage and they lost, and it all means nothing. And all I would say is nobody's coming unglued about any of these things. We're just observing it as an observation. But whether you're pro Niners, anti-Niners, whatever, put that aside for a second and just discuss this. I did quality control. That was my job in the Canadian League, and that is game planning, and that is putting together the statistical breakdowns of your opponent and self-scouting, right? It involves what our tendencies are as a football team. and it all is cooked up into the game plan. And I'll just tell you, as somebody who did the quality control, that time is of the essence. And the old saying that time is money, time is vitally important. If an NFL team has one extra day of preparation than their opponent, that is significant. So don't tell me that this is all about much ado about nothing, because when somebody has 7 extra days or 5 extra days or whatever, anytime you're dealing with extra days of preparation time, there's more that you can get accomplished. There's more that you can glean. There's more that you can learn. You are at an advantageous position as it relates to your opponent in that particular matchup. So maybe there are people out there that don't want to hear it. Maybe there are people that feel like it's all in the stars. But I can just tell you firsthand, as somebody who's done the quality control job, that if I had 3 extra days, damn right, I'm going to be using those extra days, and I'm going to be learning things about your team in those 3 extra days and our team, and I'm going to be perfecting the game plan that much more. So I would just push back on the people who say it means nothing, and just say, you've never put together a professional football game plan. You've never been a quality control coach, and you don't understand the incredible advantage it is to have an extra day. As we're talking about a singular day, let alone 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days or more in a particular matchup. It means a ton.
Well, last year the Niners had the worst differential, and they made it to the Super Bowl, right? And so the question is that proof that it doesn't matter,
or just that they were that good?
Yeah, did they just overcome a lot? In the end, they were a 12-5 regular season team. That's good. That's really good. It was good enough for the 1 seed in the NFC.
Really could have been more like 13-4, because they lost week 18 to a Rams team, right?
Yep.
That had Carson Wentz, and nobody really played in that game.
But I just want to add this, Larry. So since I saw there was a bar graph going around from ESPN that was the worst net rest differentials since 2002. Okay.
For any game, any singular game?
For any season. So teams that had the worst season differentials, right? So like the 2024 Niners are tied for the third biggest differential in the last, 23 years. 23 years. Okay. So I didn't go through the whole graph, but I just it turns out there's 15 teams in that span that have a negative net rest differential of minus 15 or more. So last year's Niners and this year's Niners are a part of that. So those 15 teams with the biggest differentials, here's what happened. 7 of them missed the playoffs. 8 of them made the playoffs. Of the 8 that made the playoffs, Niners last year being one of them, and of course the Niners went to the Super Bowl, so they got farther than any other team.
And this is the biggest negative differentials.
Yep.
Okay.
Of those 8 teams that did make the playoffs, so 15, 7 didn't, 8 did make the playoffs. Of those 8, 3 of them got to a conference championship game. Niners are the only one that won a conference championship game. The 2002 Titans and the 2014 Colts were the other 2 that just made a conference championship game. But to me, what stood out was the Niners' 12 wins last year were the most wins of that group. And the average win total for those 8 teams was only 10.25 for the playoff team. So you had a couple of 9-win teams in there. So not great. You're not. Does this mean you can't have a 14-win season or a 13-win season? And, we're talking about 17-game seasons now. But can you have a 14-win season if you're going to be on this list? I don't know. I think what you said earlier, I agree with, in the sense that, and maybe I even think maybe I'm not as far with you in terms of how much it matters, because I do agree fundamentally that it matters. What it really translates to, I'm not sure. You know what I mean? I definitely I'll put my line in the sand on this. I don't think the NFL hates the Niners or the league has it out for the Niners. I don't think that. The 49ers being good is good for the NFL. They've got them in 6 primetime games, like most in the league. Them and the Jets and somebody else in Dallas. Is that what it is? Dallas, the Jets,
I think
and the
so.
Niners.
Yeah. I mean,
They
you're
don't hate
engaging,
the Niners. Okay.
right?
Um,
The Niners are one of their cash cows.
They are. And I think the other thing to keep in mind, there are some major wins on the schedule for the Niners. Number one being, I think, they don't go to London. They could have. They could have been sent to London. The Niners have some requirements, as we know. They don't want to play day home games at the beginning of September, right?
Right.
So, like, there's a lot. They don't have a 3. They don't have 3 road games in a row in any stretch.
Or
I mean,
or home. They don't have a 3-game stretch where they're home or road.
So, which I don't know what the social calendar is for Al Guido, but sometimes that's good. Sometimes teams don't want that because maybe they have a concert or something they're trying to fit in to a weekend, right? So, open dates aren't necessarily bad dates for stadiums. Open football dates. So I do think there's some good stuff in this schedule for them. Their Seattle game on the road is early. I checked last year, mid-October, it was like mid-70s. Now it can also be 51 degrees. Who knows what's going to be in Seattle?
I mean, they got a major break avoiding, the Florida teams until November, until later in the year. I mean, people always talk about, oh my God, you have cold weather games. You're going to have to go to Buffalo in December. Okay. I mean, that's bad. But to me, the one that gets talked about a lot, what doesn't get talked about is you're going to have to play in Miami in September. You're going to have to play in Jacksonville or Tampa in September. And you're a West Coast team that's been practicing in, 75-degree temperatures, 80, 90-degree temperatures, but no humidity. And now you're walking into a place that's ridiculously humid in the hottest time of the year. I saw week 1, it's Miami and Jacksonville. That sounds about right. Make those Florida teams play each other in the early part of the year, because it's a major disadvantage going into that kind of humidity early in the year. Guys cramp up, the way teams practice now. They don't bring it for, there's only 3 preseason games. They're not putting their regulars out there in the first game for more than a series. They're not putting their regulars out there in the third game at all. So, and they're usually playing the regulars only into the third quarter in the middle game. So, and they practice, you get into a Miami game week 1 or a Jacksonville or a Tampa game week 1. You get to that third quarter, your offensive line, those guys are starting to cramp up. That's a major factor. So I like the fact that the Florida teams are both later in the year.
My conclusion here is I don't think they got screwed, but I do think it's something that they just have a lot less rest than their opponents. Now, I do think when you dive into it, like the Chiefs game, like you said, could be worse. Playing the Chiefs off a bye, to me, is almost worse than the rest differential, because we know Andy Reid's incredible. I don't know. I don't have it, but it's, whatever. Yeah. It's like 16-2 or something. Yeah, if you were on a bye and they were on a bye, Andy gets the advantage. The Dallas game is at home. There are parts of this schedule that are really good for the Niners, but are just not new information. Like, you play Dallas and Kansas City and Detroit at home this year. We just already knew that stuff. So it's not part of Wednesday's discussion, but it is part of what makes the schedule good, is that some of the really good NFC teams they play, I mean, Detroit and Dallas are at home. The Jets are a home game. These are all things that are out of this is just part of the rotation. Well, not Dallas. Dallas was part of the first place crossover game, but there are a lot of good things in the schedule. And the other thing, Larry, at Packers, at Bills, back-to-back, November, December. Somebody from Milwaukee texted me or DM'd me yesterday and said, it's actually not that bad of weather here late November. They said, you really don't want to be here in May. That's when you don't want to be here.
Well, that's for somebody who lives there. I mean, whatever it is in November is the worst day in San Francisco for the year.
Well, I mean,
but I know what he's saying, though.
The Green Bay game was pretty bad here.
I've been in Chicago in November around Thanksgiving. Chicago can be, you're talking about 30s and, 35 degrees, something like that, but not, what's rough is January. So late December and January is when you don't want to be in Buffalo, Chicago, Green Bay, anywhere outdoors. There is just, that's when it's really brutal.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I said last night about that stretch, weeks 12 and 13. From a schedule standpoint, you don't like it, right? You don't want to have to go to Green Bay and then go back to Buffalo, and Buffalo's coming off a bye. That's tough. From let's see what these guys are made of standpoint. Let's see what Brock Purdy's made of standpoint. I think it's pretty cool. Let's throw up some roadblocks and see, is it going to be raining in Buffalo? Is it going to be cold? Let's see what he does. That might be a valuable experience for him,
Yeah. So my son and I did a stream last night. We went through the schedule, and he had the Niners as an 11-win team, or he had the Niners as a 12-win team. He had them as 12-5. I had them at 11-6. He said the over-under in Vegas was 11.5. So we were pretty much right on the money. Did you do that exercise of going game by game? And it's such a futile thing and I always rip it when, other people do it, but it almost feels like, okay, it's almost like obligatory. All right, the schedule's out. Let's go through it. But and I know it's all dependent on who's healthy, and you're not going to know that, at this point. So, or, even like a lot of people are like, oh, game of the year, Niners Lions. That could be a dog meat game. That could be a game where Goff doesn't play and Purdy doesn't play and nothing gets decided. It's so late in the year that you just never know. I mean, Niners Rams in week 18 probably looked good on the to somebody, and then all of a sudden it was Carson Wentz against Sam Darnold when it actually came to be played. But did you do an exercise game by game, and what kind of record did you give for the 49ers?
I did it with like very quick snap judgment, put little thought into it, and just run through it and just kind of see like, what are the games they should win, and what are the games that are kind of 50-50? Maybe you give it to the opponent. Where do you end up? That's how I like.
You always got to project one loss.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like true. It makes no sense. I mean,
but that's hard to project. So the way I always like to do it at the first pass is like, what are the games you should win, and then the 50-50 games, I make them a loss, and then we see where you're at, right? And then we know maybe you'll win some of those 50-50 games, and maybe you'll lose one or two of the weird games. But so to me, when you do that, like this team's got to win 12 games. To me, they got to go win 12 games. Yeah.
All right, let's
11,
go.
11 would be a disappointment.
Let's do it quickly, and I'll give you what I said and what Kev said, and we'll go down quickly. Here we go. Jets week 1. Kev and I both said Niners win.
I'm not going to give them a loss till week 7, so you can skip ahead if you want.
Okay, so I said the Niners win in week 1 against the Jets. They win in week 2 against the Vikings. Kev had them winning as well. I said the Niners would lose week 3 against the Rams. He had it as a win. We both had them beating the Patriots. So he had them 4-0 in September. I had them 3-1 in September. So,
that's fine.
Okay. Then we get into week 5, Cardinals. We both had a win. Week 6, Seahawks. That's a Thursday nighter, I believe.
Yep.
We both had a win there, which some people, would maybe say that could be a loss. But I think the Niners really do show up for Seattle, and they bring it for Seattle for whatever reason. Chiefs, we both had as a loss. Both had the Cowboy game in week 8 as a win.
Mm-hmm.
The week 9 bye, of course. Week 10, we both had the Niners beating the Buccaneers on the road. Did you?
Yep.
Were you there?
I'm with you.
Week 11, Kev said loss against Seattle. I said win.
At home.
Week 12, and this is now the road game in Green Bay. We both put down a Niner win, even though, on paper, that could be a very tough game. We both had a Niner loss in Buffalo.
Wait a second. You've got them 9-3 right now.
Yeah, I have them. I have the bottom falling out towards.
Oh my gosh, Larry.
Yeah. So like I have them beating Green Bay. Did you have them losing to Green Bay?
No.
Beating Green Bay. Did you have them losing to Dallas?
No.
Okay, so but you had them losing to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Okay, so so now we are in that was Green Bay. Now we're at Buffalo. Kevin and I both said loss.
Yeah, great.
Okay. That's week 13. Now we're in the tail end of the schedule, week 14. Now, I put down Kev said win against the Bears. I put down a loss. Now, the Bears have a really good defense. I think the Niners are going to lose, probably a game to somebody they should not lose to this year. And I think the Bears, that could be a perfect trap game. You're going to have real physical games, I think, against Seattle, Green Bay, and Buffalo. And, I think you're going to go 2-1 in that little stretch. And then I think there's going to be a letdown. And I don't even know if it'll be Caleb in week 14. It might be somebody else. But I got the Niners losing to the Bears, which obviously nobody would actually believe is going to happen. But, I'm going to project that. And then week 15, Kevin and I both had them losing to the Rams.
You have them getting swept by the Rams.
I have them getting swept by the Rams. And then I have them, both of us have them beating the Dolphins. And then both of us have them losing to the Lions and then beating Arizona to finish the year. So basically my losses are the Lions, the Lions, the Rams, the Bears, the Chiefs, and the Rams again. I have the Rams again. So I have them losing one.
That's too many. That's too many losses. Losing to the Rams twice, losing to the Bears. That's
3, 4, 5, 6.
I
have 11-6.
Being
11-6.
They won 12 games last year. They should have won 13. They could have, not should have. Maybe they could have won 13 the last game of the year. And Brock should be a better player this year than he was last year. And is their defense any worse? You've got them. You've got them. I just don't see how they go 11-6, and it doesn't feel a little underwhelming. I mean, pretty underwhelming. Losing 6 games.
Well, not only that, I mean, I have them losing 4 of their final 6 games.
Yeah, yeah. So you're not going to be the 1 seed,
right?
Obviously,
you probably play 1 home game, and then you have to go on the road.
Which is what I really, when we talk about like chasing a Super Bowl, the Super Bowl conversation to me is half of it, but the other half is just being the 1 seed is really what the regular season's about. It's about being the 1 seed, right?
The rest,
and not having to go to Green Bay in January and the rest and all that stuff. So that'd be very disappointing. So I'm at 12, maybe 13. But yeah, I mean the schedule's tough, but the schedule was tough last year, and it took them having a mini collapse in the middle of the season too. And then just not, that week 18, give it a coin flip. But whatever. I mean, really my answer, Larry, is whatever. Like, I don't know.
Who knows?
The Bears game, week 14. I mean, Caleb might be great by then. Caleb could be down by then. He maybe a hot start to the year. I'll tell you one thing
it could be the Western Kentucky Hilltopper quarterback in there at that point.
I like the Jets game, no matter when that game is occurring. I think the Jets are in for a weird year. Just strategically, I like it early before, Aaron has. Maybe Rodgers will be better week 5 than he is week 1 coming off the Achilles. But
they
I
also
think,
have 3 new offensive linemen or 2 new offensive linemen.
I mean, 2. Yeah, I mean the Tyron Smith and Olufashanu. They've added a lot of pieces. Did you see this story from the Jets reporter Connor Hughes of SNY that the Jets tried to not replace Nathaniel Hackett, but kind of shadow replace Nathaniel Hackett? Not knowing much about him other than my parents bought their house in Davis from his dad, his year at UCD. Watching Hard Knocks, I did not think was his finest hour. Like
I agree.
it was not impressive. And the fact that they tried to kind of put somebody above him and he's Aaron's guy, probably tells you that last year they had all this time with him without Aaron. And they were like, this is no, Sean Payton's comments before last season felt personal and inappropriate, but
where he basically said he ripped Hackett and he did something that nobody does, which is nobody in the coaching fraternity rips somebody else in the coaching fraternity. And a lot of people feel that every team that went against Denver, brought extra juice because of that comment. And who
that
knows?
may be,
in the coaching world, maybe that's the case.
And it's not Nathaniel Hackett's fault. I mean, the Broncos offered him a head coaching job. You take the job, but it didn't work. And it didn't feel like watching last year that he's about to become, I just don't see that. So there's some weird stuff going on with the Jets. There always is. This is weird. Like the fact that they basically, for people who didn't see the story, they tried to hire like a assistant head coach that would actually kind of be Nathaniel Hackett's boss as the OC on the offensive side. And they didn't happen, but that's a weird spot. So anyway, I like that game early, but I'd also like that game late. What I like about it early is I think there's going to be so much attention on Brock. There already is. The closer we get to the season, the more there will be. And by playing Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, you do put a bright light on the Niners, but they get to kind of share that week one load. Aaron will get plenty of the talk that week also, right? So
I think the league hates
like
Aaron Rodgers and wanted to put him in a high profile loss situation. I mean, to start the year, this is probably the toughest game on their schedule. By the way, the Niners are favored in every game this year,
which,
I mean, we'll see when it actually comes about. But right now,
how are they favored at the Bills right now? Just because Niner fans will.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of it's based on just trying to get Niner fans to, get that handle to people to bet that thing and try to engage as many people as possible. I always wonder, because Vegas in Nevada is so close to, Niner country. I mean, the Niners were favored to win the Super Bowl over Kansas City. Kansas City had Mahomes and the better defense. So, I mean, that was bizarre. That one to me was more bizarre than the Niners being favored in every game this year. But yeah, that Buffalo game, Green Bay on the road. The Niners are favored to go into Lambeau in late November. And
well, I mean, I know what the playoffs look like with them in Detroit and Green Bay. The Niners are a better team than the Packers. They should be. Doesn't mean they win the game.
They were last year
well against them. Yeah,
they were last year.
I think they will be again this year.
Yeah, but I mean, Green Bay's got a lot of young players, and they are getting better. So
good
Luke
coach,
Musgrave. Yeah, I mean, they've got great Jaden Reed, all those receivers, Dobbs. I mean, they're all young, getting better. So I don't know. Green Bay to me and Detroit are the two teams to look for to see which one can take a major step forward. I overall thought the Niners schedule was fair. I mean, it's like, I like having the Jets early. I like the fact that the schedule in the first part of the year seems to be favorable. I mean, you never want to have that ridiculously rough beginning to your season, because it shapes the way the whole year goes. I mean, the Patriots game is a very, very winnable game, as is the Jets game. And then Rams and Vikings. I mean, I think it starts off nicely. I don't like the fact that the Niners have a rest disadvantage against, the Kansas City, against Dallas and that kind of thing. But, somebody's got to have the advantage. Somebody has to have the disadvantage. I like the fact that they are getting the Florida teams, the Buccaneers in week 11 or week 10, I should say, for the Buccaneers, and the Dolphins in week 16. So, I mean, those games easily could have been early in the year. And those, I think, if you got to play Miami in September, that's really rough. So overall,
Bye's in a good spot, right? Week 9, good spot
yeah,
for
the
a
week
bye.
9 bye, I got no real issue with the week 9 bye. I think that makes, you want a middle of the pack kind of a bye situation. It is interesting though. Somebody tweeted out the number of times each NFL team plays an opponent coming off their bye. The Niners have 4 teams off the bye, most in the NFL. Colts are second. They play 3 games against teams off the bye. Seattle, New York, Washington, New Orleans, Miami, Denver, Tampa play 2 games against teams off the bye. And then you've got Minnesota, Green Bay, Cincy, Baltimore, Carolina, Atlanta, Tennessee, Jacksonville, Buffalo, the Jets, the Patriots, and the Eagles. So as far as the Niners are concerned, Philly, Green Bay are probably their big challengers in the conference. Plays 0 games off teams coming off their bye all year. Niners have 4 games against teams coming off their bye.
Yeah.
So that, that the schedule maker's doing them no favors there. That's for sure.
No, and the other thing is the Packers-Bills stretch. That's Thanksgiving week. Now the Niners don't play on Thanksgiving, but that's a complicated week for human beings,
for families
outside of football. So that's just another part of that. I'm sure the players looked at that week and went, "Oh, you'd love to be home at least one of those days. Certainly the day after the weekend after Thanksgiving." But there are things that these other teams have. Kansas City, as an example, Kansas City's playing on Christmas Day. It's a Wednesday. Would you trade all of these? Would you trade 3 teams coming off byes to get a Wednesday Christmas Day game after you played the previous Saturday? Would you want that? Would you like
watching how bad?
Would you rather go to London and play on Christmas Day Wednesday, do both of those things as opposed to this? I mean, there's just trade-offs to all these schedules.
Oh, I know. There's nothing's going to be totally overly positive. I will say this. I kind of felt like if I'm going to play on Christmas like the Niners did against the Ravens, I think it's a major advantage to be the road team. Because otherwise, the road team's doing what the road team does, and they're just pushing Christmas off. Now, their families get screwed because the dad's not home for Christmas. But as far as the Niners basically tried to do it both. They're trying to do like, hey, we're gonna have Christmas with our families, and then we're gonna try to play that night. It didn't. They looked really bad in that game against Baltimore. Now, how much of that was Baltimore and the game plan? But Baltimore stayed in a hotel. It was a regular road game. The Niners, I don't know what their plan, what their exact thing was. I think they stayed in the hotel, but I thought some of these guys did Christmas morning, and then because it was a night game. I'm pretty sure they stayed in the hotel, but then were allowed to go do Christmas morning with their families, and then had to peel away and go to the game. So I don't know. I mean, it just seems to me that that's really hard to do. And football is such a violent game. You're going to sit there and, be having eggnog sitting around the tree in your pajamas, watching your babies open up gifts, and then somehow get in game day mode. Just 2, 3, 4 hours later. That seemed difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if I'm going to play the Christmas thing, I want the Christmas thing on the road. I'll tell you one thing I thought when I first saw the schedule was, man, I sure love the way week 1. I mean, week 1 is going to be awesome. I mean, first of all, you get the rematch of the AFC title game. Baltimore goes to Arrowhead. And then you get Green Bay and Philly and Brazil. And those are 2 of the top contenders in the NFC.
And that's a Friday night game, right?
And that's a Friday night. That could be really cool. I'm really eager to see the Brazilian crowd and what kind of reaction there is.
I bet you are.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I want to see the Brazilian women excited about Green Bay and Philly. But no, but then the Raiders Chargers, the Harbaugh debut game, that's going to be fun. Rams Lions, I think could be a very good matchup. I mean, you're going Stafford against Goff, 2 guys that were traded for each other. Jets Niners on Monday Night Football. I mean, to me, those are 5 games that I want to see that weekend. I want to see Harbaugh's first game. I want to see the game in Brazil. I want to see Niners Jets on Monday night. Want to see Lions and Rams. Want to see Baltimore, Kansas City. I thought week 1 looks really good.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, there's a few weeks that really jump out. That's one of them for sure. Let's see. I mean, I don't know. Did you want to go through some of these weeks? But
well, I mean, just some of the. I was just going to say to you, what are some of the other, now looking at the schedule, getting to see some of the matchups, what are some of the great games that you're looking forward to this year?
Yeah, I mean, week 14 has a Thursday night Green Bay at Detroit, Sunday night Chargers at Chiefs, Monday night Bengals at Cowboys. Bengals at Cowboys, I think, is a cool game. Just kind of feels like a game we don't get a lot. Obviously, the Harbaugh Bowl, you mentioned that. That's a good game.
Yeah, the Harbaugh Bowl is going to be good. Baltimore at the Chargers. This is the Harbaugh Bowl 2, and that's week 12. That's Thanksgiving weekend.
And that's a Monday night. Yeah.
Yeah, Monday nighter to wrap up Thanksgiving weekend. We get John on the road in LA against Jim in his Chargers. That could be a hell of a game. I'm looking forward to Baltimore at Buffalo in week 4. In Buffalo, I think that's going to be a good game. I'm looking at Bears Texans week 2. Caleb Williams against CJ Stroud.
Well,
I'm looking at that one. That could be really good.
Houston, you bring up Houston. Houston's interesting because they kind of got as the league put it, the Detroit treatment from last year, where you go, this is trending in the right direction, and the Texans get 4 primetime games. Obviously, they could get flexed into 2 more potentially. They're in on Houston. We get Houston at Dallas.
I'm too.
We get the Bears Texans game that you're talking about. Detroit at Houston is another good one. And I think is it Tennessee? What's the other one?
Well, that Houston Dallas game
Baltimore,
is week 11.
Baltimore at Houston Baltimore at Houston on Christmas Day is the other game. So Kansas City Steelers. Kansas City got the headline for Christmas, but the better game is Baltimore at Houston.
So who's Kansas City playing?
Pittsburgh.
So how many games are there on Christmas? Because isn't it usually Dallas and Detroit involved in a game, and then, but you've got there's 2 or 3?
2 games on Christmas Wednesday,
or on Thanksgiving. You're saying on Christmas?
I'm talking about Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So I was thinking Thanksgiving. Yeah, I mean, there's a number of good matchups. I mean, week 14, you get to see Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota. I think that could be kind of good. I think it's interesting. Late October, you get Bears at Commanders, and you get the first 2 quarterbacks in the draft, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, going head to head.
To answer your question, sorry, Larry. To answer your question, the Thanksgiving is Bears at Lions, which again, there are years where you go, oh. This year, maybe not one of those years.
Yeah, I'll watch
Giants
that.
at Cowboys. This is the NFL did Giants at Cowboys, I think, a couple years ago, and got one of their biggest rating numbers ever. So they're going back to the
New York market, division game.
And then this is a game where you go, ooh, for Miami at Green Bay
is the night game on Thanksgiving,
which is a great game, but it's just for Miami. You're like, oh, they would have preferred that game be early in the year.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be interesting. That'll be an interesting game too. There's just a bunch of matchups that are good. Atlanta at Philly on Monday Night Football week 2. Kirk Cousins making his Monday night debut this year against Philly. Looking forward to that. Philly at the New York Giants in week 7. Saquon Barkley going back to New York, and that in a hotly contested division battle.
It's so funny though, man. Like, we come up with these like, oh, Saquon Barkley back to New York, and then we'll get to that game and Saquon will be RB3 or something. I don't know.
It all gets rolling August 1st with the Hall of Fame game, Bears at Texans. The Hall of Fame game. So we get CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams, Bears at Texans.
How about just one Raider? The Raiders used to always get that early season Monday night doubleheader game, right? And now the NFL has moved
to Golick on the call or something.
Yeah, Golick and Greenberg would call the game.
Right.
And they don't, the NFL we have two quote unquote double headers on Monday night, but they're not the old school doubleheader. They're the new staggered doubleheader, right? So we do get two of those games. We get one in week 7 and one in week 3, or two of those nights, where there's always kind of.
What do you mean? You say it's not the same. You mean like the other ones used to be one and then another. Now
right.
These go off. You got to choose if you want to watch the second half of the first game or the first half of the
exactly.
Second game.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't love that. I mean, come on. Do you want us to watch the whole game or not?
They just want you to watch one of them.
I know. In the playoffs,
I think what the NFL, I think, found was the second game of that doubleheader. That game didn't rate as well because it was so late for most of the country.
Well, and it was always Raiders getting blown out by somebody.
Wait a second. That is inappropriate, Larry.
What?
That's a mean joke, and I insist you take it back. The Raiders are not some bag for you to just bang on and expect no repercussions. They've got the Falcons week 15 on Monday Night Football.
They do have 2 tight ends.
And 2 quarterbacks.
Maybe 3. They also have Carter Bradley, who's Gus Bradley's kid. He's probably their best quarterback. We'll see. We'll see how that all shakes out. But yeah, the Raiders got Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer in the draft. All right, a couple other Niner things. Is there anything else on the schedule that we really haven't hit that you would like to hit? I mean, the NFL Network turns this into a whole week-long thing. It does feel a little forced because it's like football. Like, you can talk about basketball matchups, you can talk about baseball matchups, and you got a reasonable expectation who's going to be there usually. In football, it's such an injury sport that it feels like we're analyzing something that we should not be analyzing. It's like there could easily be 3 injuries that are suffered in the fourth quarter of the week before, taking that matchup that we're totally looking forward to and making it not so good.
Yeah, well, somebody's quarterback's going to get hurt early and it'll blow the whole thing up. But, I think part of the fun of it is knowing that there is somebody or somebodies at the league office playing you get to playing God with the schedule. And that's kind of fun. Like, it'd be fun to be that person and have the power to put this schedule together. And I think it gives everybody a chance to be offended about something, which is really a great unifier.
It's a big part of being an American. I'm leaving my house and I would like to be offended. You know what I think
something to be mad about.
Yeah. I'll tell you the one thing that I haven't looked up yet, but I always love, it's always kind of a fun exercise to do when it comes to the schedule, is take a look at what team, because there's always one team, and it seems like it's the Raiders a lot, that just has been done no favors in September. Football is the one sport where if you do, let's just say the schedule comes out and you get Chiefs in week 1, Niners in week 2, and Eagles in week 3, something like, and you're a decent team, but it's like you're 0-3, and you saw the numbers. You see the numbers, like what happens when you start 0-2. What percentage of teams make the playoffs from 0-2? The percentage of teams that make the playoffs from 0-3 is super low. So it seems like there's always one team. And if you dig deep enough, you'll be like, oh, my God, they've got the most brutal September schedule of all time. I like them, but I can't bet them because I think there's a chance they start 0-3 or 0-4. I'm not sure who that team is this year, but there definitely is some team out there, I bet you, that has just a brutal start to their year, which will essentially take them out of it before it even starts, which is rough.
I mean, I don't think this is them, but, the Ravens do play the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Bills, the Bengals 4 out of the first 5.
So that's a good call. So it could be the Ravens. The Ravens could be, second week in October, and they're, especially if they lost a significant player like a Lamar, anything like that, for let's say even a week or 2 in there, you could be looking at, 1-3, 0-4.
Buffalo has Miami, Ravens, Texans, Jets. No, probably not them. I mean, part of this too is nothing is easy. How about
Nothing's easy.
the Lions
But I
bye
mean,
week is week 5. That's suboptimal
no, yeah,
for them.
that's way early. That's way early. But I mean, there's probably some Colts team or some team out there has got 3 brutal games to start the year. And people are going to be like, they're done. And then they're actually going to be like, well, actually, they're a good team. They just played 3 great teams early on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the one exercise that I want to still do that I haven't done yet is like who's going to be ambushed by the schedule, by just a rough September schedule. And in many years, it's been the Raiders. It's like they get the Chiefs in week 1, and then they get some great NFC team in week 2, and some team
getting picked on.
Road game in Miami week 3, and it's like, oh my God, their Raiders are 0-3, and then before and then coaches get fired from slow starts. So it's like every game is vitally important. Couple other Niner points. A lot of debate going back and forth about Ricky Pearsall, and I don't know what your take was on Pearsall, but there seemed to be contradicting reports of how he looked at minicamp. Some people feel like he looked great.
Contradictory opinions.
He looked great. The Tony the Tiger take. They're great. It's an old school commercial for you. You guys don't remember, but
very nutritious cereal.
Yeah.
This is back before.
Great.
This is back before we looked at labels on food. Exactly. Okay, there was an era where people were like, sugar content. What do you? 64 grams a serving? I don't know. Is that too much?
Cocoa Puffs are there? Why not? Yeah, seriously. That's when I bring home Cinnamon Toast Crunch from Costco.
Oh no!
My wife grabs it and puts it like aside, and like makes a return trip to Costco to return it. Yeah. Seriously,
like a big box.
Yeah. Well, that's like a double box. You get the double box. That's a great cereal though, but she's just totally anti. But as far as Pearsall, what was your take on draft day? What was your take after having seen him? You saw him moving around in minicamp. Well, some people had the take of, you know what? He's great. He looks great, and he's going to be great. And other people were like, hey, they threw him 4 balls. He didn't catch any. I was less than impressed, and I'm very, very concerned. I had a more nuanced take, but what was yours first?
So I was not there. I wasn't able to go to rookie availability. So I didn't see him in person. And
but you saw some of the footage, I'm sure.
Yeah, right? I saw some of the footage, but I know, like, I've been to these things. Like, you can come out of there with some feeling. And I've seen what David has said about him. I've seen what you've said about him. I watched you and Grant talking about him the other day. And I would say, like, I liked the pick by the time we got to the end of the first round. I think the Niners are well served by getting a player who has produced. Now, producing in college is different than producing in the NFL, but what all that adds up to is a player that I think should have a fairly high floor for them. He's not going to turn into Justin Jefferson. I mean, he's not. He's probably, the odds are very much. I would not predict that he turns into Brandon Ayuk. The question is, are you okay with that? For what this team needs right now, I am okay with that, especially because I think Ayuk's going to be on the team long term. So there is a middle ground between bust and superstar receiver that I think makes Ricky Pearsall a successful draft pick for the Niners. I don't, and I saw you and Grant talking about, I didn't, and I don't when I get to see him for the first time, expect to watch him and feel that he is a runaway from everybody else on the field speed guy, right? Which is what his 40 tells you he is. But I didn't feel that way watching his Florida tape. The one thing I would disagree with Grant on that you guys got into specifically, not even disagree, he brought up the correlation or he put side by side Dante Pettis and Ricky Pearsall's productivity. And I think you made the point, like, Dante Pettis was a superstar punt returner, and the 49ers did not use him that way. I called Washington's game the day that Dante Pettis returned his 8th punt or kickoff return for a touchdown. It was against Montana, and it like tied the college football record. He was a superstar returner. They didn't use him that way. He is different. I know the numbers look the same. I do think he's different from Ricky Pearsall from a physicality standpoint. I know you said, and I was interested to hear you say this, that you weren't convinced that Ricky Pearsall was a go over the middle and make a catch kind of guy. I think I'm paraphrasing you appropriately. But
well, no, I think in the college game, he absolutely is. My point is that when you get destroyed in the NFL by some of these hard hitters,
yeah, got it.
That maybe over time, suddenly you're not going over the middle with the same vim and vigor.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Fair. I do think he has more of a physicality to him that will translate than Dante Pettis did. So
yeah, I do.
Long answer.
And he's faster.
Line,
he's faster.
And he's faster. Pettis played on one of the best offenses in college football. Pearsall has played with a rotation of less than spectacular quarterbacks. Pettis was part of the 1-2 punch with John Ross. Those two guys caught like 40 touchdowns between the two of them. So Pettis had another guy on the field with him to draw attention. Ricky Pearsall really didn't. He was the clear number one target on that Florida offense. So, again, I like him. I think he's going to be a good player. I don't think he's going to look like a top-tier superstar receiver. And I think that's probably okay.
A lot of people got mad when I did a comparison video and I compared him to Danny Amendola. And everybody's like, you hate Pearsall. It's like, no, you don't realize how good Danny Amendola was.
Yeah, you hate Danny Amendola?
Well, I'm just like, Danny Amendola played 14 years in the NFL. Danny Amendola player. Won 2 Super Bowls. He led the NFL in kickoff return yards one year.
Tell me this. Do you think they are athletically similar?
No, because when I looked at the profiles, I mean, Amendola, I think, had a 27-inch vertical. This guy's got a 42-inch vertical.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're totally different. Amendola was a ground-bound game. But where, I was on the sideline for Rams-Niners in the Harbaugh era when Danny Amendola was a Ram and Carlos Rogers was just having the hardest time sticking with him. Just because Amendola would work, he'd turn you into a pretzel. I mean, he had great footwork, great stop and start, great head and shoulder fakes, great short area ability to create separation, and did. But then, like Amendola, he would give Carlos Rogers, a little stutter and go, or a little pivot route, and he doesn't know if he's going in or out. And if it was all short area and he was schemed up with the timing of Brady's release, or in this case, I think it was Goff's release. I think he was playing for Goff at the time. Maybe not even Goff. Who was the Rams quarterback during the Harbaugh era? I forget. But I think maybe Bradford, maybe? I don't know who it was. But maybe it was Goff.
No.
He freed himself up. I mean, he freed himself up in the short area all the time. But then once he got into the meat and potatoes of the length of his route, okay, so now he's at the line of scrimmage and he gives him a little shimmy, and now he's, a little stop and start, a little quick shoulder fake, and Carlos Rogers gets left, and now Amendola's got, 3 steps on him, but now he's taking it upfield, and Carlos is in a trail position. Well, Carlos used to close that ground in the trail position because he was just faster, even though he was a veteran and Amendola was kind of a younger player at that time. And he would eat up that cushion. And that's kind of what I see with Pearsall. He's going to give you a move at the line. His footwork in and out of the breaks, it's very smooth. He's very smooth. But then when he starts taking it upfield or taking it across the field, when he gets into the non-cutting portion of his route, I think the dynamic athletes that man the corner in the NFL close the space on him and contest those passes. So, like, if he's in total lockstep with Brock Purdy, I think it could be a Stafford to Puka Nacua type situation. Somewhat prolific, somewhat difficult to stop. Little choice routes, little stuff within 5 yards of the line. Quarterback's throwing it with anticipation. Ball's coming out pre-break. A receiver turns around. Boom. Good luck defending that. But if you make your move and now you're running 10 yards down the field with the corner. I don't see that extra gear from Pearsall. I think NFL corners have that extra gear for the most part and are going to be able to eat up that cushion on the length of the route. So my big question is, can he maintain? I know he can gain separation. I've seen him, and I saw him. I watched enough of his Florida stuff to see him do it against really good corners.
Which, when you say that's the hardest, that's the biggest skill that an NFL receiver needs.
Especially, that's the skill that rookie receivers usually lack. Is like they can't get off the line. They don't have enough moves. They don't have the right footwork. They're not as refined, and they're not as precise. They're not as explosive in and out of the break. This guy shows all that. He shows all of the things: the head and shoulder fakes, the body fakes, the stop and start, getting his hands turned and around at the right time. And he's got it. He's got several traits that you say, "Oh my God, this guy looks like a 5-year vet," But then my big concern is when you get into the length of the route, do you maintain that separation, or is now the corner on you because you really don't have that extra gear that once you beat him to keep beating him, he's got that extra gear to close it. So that's my first concern. And the other concern is just that I know he's going to operate in the middle of the field, and I know he's going to get picked off. Now, a lot of people have countered and said, Krug, you're talking about an NFL from years ago. There isn't that kind of physicality in the middle of the field anymore. And I would say there's less of it, but it's still there. And it's just like, what happens when like the Niners run across the middle of the field like they freaking own it. All their guys. There's not one guy that they have that doesn't run across the middle of the field with total confidence, to the point where you think that that's the way the game's played across the league. Then you watch other teams and you realize there's lots of receivers that run across the middle in a really kind of a tentative way because they're looking kind of around for that starch hit. JJ, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, CMC, these guys don't do that. They don't do that at all. So I'm eager to see if Pearsall, once he gets subjected to some of the big hits that Puka got this last year, does he start kind of peeking, and looking around and short arming and rounding off routes and not finishing them? Or does him and Brock, after 6-7 weeks of practice, get in such lockstep that he becomes one of the most unstoppable rookie?
I think you muted yourself.
You hear me now?
No, now you jumped to whatever your problem was earlier before we started streaming.
Hold on.
The mic jumped. Well, Larry's, I do want to react to that, so this is a perfect time for me to jump in. The beauty, if you have any questions about whether or not Ricky Pearsall will be, ready to answer the bell of what it means to be an NFL receiver, like he's got to stay pedal to the metal, because Jacob Cowing's also here, and Jacob Cowing is it kind of feels like a darling of sorts for a lot of people coming into this 49ers preseason. So there's not going to be any room to be the guy who isn't willing to go over the middle, who isn't willing to take a hit, who isn't willing to try and get some yak after a catch and extend a play, who isn't willing to block, obviously. I mean, that's a prereq. There's no room for that. And, I maybe in another situation, you could step in if you're the young guy and go, they got Debo, they got Jennings, they got Ayuk, they got McCaffrey, they got Kittle. I'll just kind of hang back, do my thing from the back of the room. When the opportunity comes to me, I'll be ready, but I'm not going to push it because those guys are going to get all the touches. But you can't do that on this team because you're fighting for, Ricky's making the team, obviously, but you do have to earn it to some degree. And you're going to have Danny Gray and Ronnie Bell, but then you got Jacob Cowing, who is a lot like Ricky Pearsall in the sense that he's a very productive player. He's been waiting for his time. He's played a ton of college football at 2 different places. And, they know what it's supposed to look like. They know what it takes. They know what it's about. So I don't see a place for Ricky Pearsall to not be the kind of guy that has to fit in. I don't think I can. Am I able to? No. So I can't click. This is Larry originated this stream, and he's gone right now. So I can't just go in and click on somebody's comment. But
hello, I'm back.
Oh, hey,
sorry about that.
That's fine. I was just saying I don't worry too much about it with Ricky. Even though he's a first round pick, has to look over his shoulder because Jacob Cowing is there too. Yeah. So you gotta be the guy that goes over the middle. You got to do all that stuff.
A lot of people like Cowing. I really like Cowing. The draft was a couple weeks ago now. What would you say as far, and now that you've had a couple weeks to not just, maybe see, think about it, watch more film on these guys, or maybe see other people's reactions to the pick.
Is the CIA on to Larry?
What happened?
What? Now you froze. Now you're back.
I was frozen. You're frozen. Sorry about that.
No,
not sure what's going on.
I don't know. Maybe the internet provider is like, enough with this. Is your 7th stream today. We've got to regulate this guy's usage.
Cut his mic. Cut him. Take him off. Give him the hook.
I mean, yeah, the receivers, obviously, the running backs, of course, Garendo and Schrader. So I don't know. I mean, Mustafa, Green,
Mustafa did look amazing in the minicamp. I will say that. I mean, he really did look good.
How big does he look on the field?
He looks very thick. I mean, he looks kind of like a small linebacker, Could
he play some linebacker?
He might. He might be able to play some linebacker. I'll say this. He's very, very confident. He moves very confidently out there. He definitely is a guy who, when you look at him, you're like, oh, I don't know if that guy's going to be able to play coverage because he's kind of thick. And then you see him move, and he moves so confidently, and he looks confident even down the field, that I kind of think that he might be their best safety as far as, free safety options between Brown and Hufanga and him. He might be the best.
Come on.
Free safety between the three of them. Because, I mean, Hufanga is not. Hufanga ran 4.7, something like that. And Jair Brown, I think, is definitely a productive interceptor, but his coverage is just okay. I don't think it's super tight.
But Hufanga plays with his brain. Hufanga plays with anticipation to make up for his lack of speed.
But what's Hufanga's best thing? He's great in the box, attacking the mesh point at the line of scrimmage. I think that's his best thing. I think if you make him play coverage down the field, he's gettable. I think that's where he's more gettable. I mean, he's not ideal in either capacity. A lot of people, I think in some ways, Hufanga's overrated from the standpoint of, he had some big games. People see the hair. They see the Palomalu thing, the SC connection, and they're like, oh, this guy's Palomalu. He's really a smart player, but he falls off some tackles. So it's not like he's just absolutely a powerhouse tackler. He doesn't run anything close to the way Palomalu ran. See, Palomalu was a 4.3 guy. This guy's not that fast. Yeah, he's really, really, really smart, but he's not like this all-world cover guy. So, if you fall off blocks at the line of scrimmage and you're not that smart, you sit there, or you're not that, you're not that fast. It's to me, it's like, okay, so you're not going to be a great free safety in a zone where you're playing the cover 3 and you got the single high and you're the field safety covering all that grass. So then he's got to be up on the line of scrimmage. But then Jair Brown, I think, is better up on the line of scrimmage than he is at free safety. And I think probably Mustafa is too. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see who plays free safety for the Niners.
Oh, this is the way they like it too. At this point, we have to say this is by design, right? That they have.
Well, they love physical, hard hitting guys.
I know,
for sure. And you know what? I'll say this: Lynch has got a good eye for it. They have physical, hard hitting guys that all have good instincts. I mean, Jair Brown has got good instincts. So your 40 time doesn't matter. I mean, Hufanga's proof. Your 40 time doesn't really matter that much at safety. It matters a ton, though, at linebacker. It matters a ton at corner. But at safety, there's so much about read and react and processing that if you process correctly, if you read the play correctly, if you flow towards the football, you're going to be useful. Some guys run great, and to me, the guy the Niners had a few years ago, Tarvarius Moore, guy was 6'2" and he ran 4.32, but he took terrible angles, and he clearly just wasn't a safety. He had to play corner only. And not only that, I don't even think he could play off or zone. He had to play kind of press man up on the line. That was like what he was comfortable doing. But he was big, strong, fast, and the scouts, I'm sure, pounded the table and said, this guy's 6'1", and he runs 4.32, and he's got long arms. Yeah, but how are his instincts? And if you've got poor instincts and you're flowing in the wrong direction, your speed actually works against you. Actually, in the wrong, I run 4.32, but I'm running the wrong way. Okay, great. You're further away from the play than you are to the play. But anyway, speed wise, I'm a little concerned about what the Niners have at free safety. But if you said, give me the guy that you think makes the big impact, I would say it's Mustafa. Maybe Cowing, but Mustafa.
All right, last question from me, which is what I titled the video, or at least what I put in the thumbnail, which is, shall they overcome? Whatever you think of the schedule, there's all this other stuff too.
Okay.
So maybe you think rest days matter and all that, however much you think it matters. Can they be the 1 seed in the NFC again this year?
No doubt. No doubt. They have Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy plays at a really high level, and he seems to play at a really high level most of the time. I mean, he didn't play great against Baltimore. He's maybe had a couple other games that were not great, but for the most part, he plays pretty good football, and they have weapons. The question I would have was, do you think they're better than they were a year ago, or are they worse?
I think they might be better.
You think they're better?
I think they might be. I mean, their subtractions Armstead.
Right. It's funny when people talk about their subtractions, they'll say they've lost a lot on the D line, and then they'll go Armstead, Gregory, Chase Young. But Gregory and Chase Young are more big names. I don't know that those are big losses, and I don't even know that those are even downgrades, because I think Floyd
they weren't
might
on
be
the
better.
team this time last year, so they were, whatever. They were not. They were additions and then subtractions, so it's a net neutral. I mean, whatever. They upgraded at that spot anyway. The other thing you do have to acknowledge, I should add, Dre Greenlaw they lost Dre Greenlaw for now at least, right?
Yeah,
we don't know
for the year most
what that's
likely.
going to look like.
Yeah, that's a loss. Here's
you don't
the
think
big
he's
question.
coming back, or you don't think he's getting back to Dre Greenlaw even when he does come back?
Well, you know what? God, I hope, there's always is he diminished question, right? Because it's a major injury. But he suffered the injury on February the 7th or 11th or whatever it was. So that used to be a career ender. Then it was a year-long injury. If modern medicine is getting better, and it's not a career-long injury and it's not a year-long injury, okay, still, don't you think he's not coming back until Thanksgiving, right? I don't know. I mean, to me, if he's back on the field before Thanksgiving and returns to anything close to what he was, we have taken steps forward in modern medicine, because this guy blew out his Achilles in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, that's pretty amazing. I think the big question.
I mean, we have taken steps forward in modern medicine.
Yeah, but
there's other
to that degree though.
Get healthy. Yeah.
Here's my main question with the Niners. Going, here we are, middle of May. Main question.
Okay.
They weren't good against the run last year. They got gouged and gashed in the preseason. Couldn't stop Aaron Jones. Couldn't stop Detroit's run game. Got pushed around in the Detroit game quite a bit. Then they lose Eric Armstead and Dre Greenlaw. and may not have a Fonga to start the year. You could make a really compelling argument. Those might be three of their best run defenders. And yet, is the Niner run D going to be better now that they moved from Eric Armstead to, Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins? And they moved away from their defensive ends for Floyd and Yatir Gross-Matos. I mean, are they going to be better against the run, or are they going to be worse against the run?
Well, first of all,
I don't know.
Healthy Eric, they lost an unhealthy, less than 100% Eric Armstead. If they lost a healthy Eric Armstead from last year, I think that'd be a different story. But I mean, he had to have been affected he was affected. And then even when he played, he had to have been. Like, I thought he showed a lot of toughness trying to play, but he never looked like 100% version of himself. So, that because of that, I think the odds that they're better against the run are good.
I think they're better.
We aren't losing to the Rams 2 times or the Bears.
Well, I know, but you know what? Weird shit happens in the NFL. So I mean, to me, you got to project a little something that's just ridiculous is going to happen because it's just the way it is. I would say this for the Niners, and I know we got to jump here. I think they're better at quarterback because Brock has a full off season. I think they're definitely better at running back because they just added 2 good running backs and some guys that I think can really play. I think they're deeper and better at wide receiver. Tight end, I can't really comment on because I think it's probably a push. I think they're probably better at offensive line. We'll see what Pooney and Nugent and Mays and Kingston. Todd Husak was on with me. He loves Kingston. He thinks Jarrett Kingston was a great pick. So we'll see. And he definitely is strong. There's no question. Kingston's strong. But I mean, I think they're deeper on the offensive line. I think they're better on the defensive line because I think Floyd's better than the defensive ends he replaces. And I think the 2-for-1 trade gives them depth with Elliott. And you're right. There were some chronic injuries there that Armstead was battling, so he was a little bit diminished. I think they're worse at linebacker, better in the secondary with Renardo Green and Mustafa. So, they're obviously worse at linebacker and maybe tight end because they're maybe a little less proven, though I do kind of like this kid Pline. We'll see what he looks like. But the rest of the team, I think, is better. So I think collectively, if you said Niners off season, are they better? Are they worse? I would say they're a little bit better, like not dramatically better, but definitely a little bit better.
Yeah, they might be a little better at the other corner spot too.
A little deeper, right?
You said Green, but Yadam, Rocky Sin, just a little more productivity, historical productivity there.
Right. A little bit, a few more bodies. I mean, a few more qualified NFL corner bodies. Right.
Yeah,
a little deeper.
Part of this too is we're talking about Hufanga, like he's back. He's not back yet. So
right.
Definitely.
That's why I'm saying safety. I kind of like them, but I don't know. And linebacker without Greenlaw, I'm a little concerned.
That's yeah.
All right. Hey, on the way out the door, the last question that people debated all week was your impressions of Sorensen. Did you have a good or bad impression of Sorensen? After listening to Sorensen speak and listening to what he said about the run D and Staley and everything, do you feel good, or are you a little nervous about Sorensen?
I feel fine about Sorensen. I've been to a lot of press conferences, seen a lot of coaches talk. I've watched them talk on film. I think you can learn a lot from watching people talk. I think you learn more watching them in person than watching them through a screen. You really pick up on things in person, and I was not there, so I watched some of what he said. I didn't care that when you asked him why he got the job, his answer was like, you'd have to ask Kyle and John.
But then he gave an answer. Then he did give an answer. He's like, my proximity to the defense, and I know the guys, and I know the D.
Yeah, well, I would say I think people were proximity sounds like, well, it was convenient, right? Like that's what
I happened to be in the room when they were making the decision.
Yeah, I was just there, and they were like, somebody grabbed the wheel. And I'm like, okay, I got it.
I was here. I knew where the wheel was.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kidding. But that didn't bother me. I think a lot of defensive coaches almost all, not all, but almost all defensive coaches want to be perceived as like low ego, no BS guys. But not all of them actually are the no ego, no BS guy that they want you to think they are. And I'll say what I like about Sorensen. If becoming a defensive coordinator was going to change him, it doesn't appear. He's wearing the same hat, the same shirt. He still hasn't shaved. Or maybe did he shave? I don't think he shaved.
I don't know. He had the hat going.
Shanahan
wears the hat.
Yeah, look, man, it's you can't, when you coach the guys that these Niners coaches coach. That's why I always thought like it was pretty eye-opening when Jeff Hafley, who was coaching like some really good players on that, like Richard Sherman. Like, is Richard Sherman going to be listening? Who is this guy? Who is this Kyle guy, Jeff Hafley? You can't be full of shit when you coach veteran players and winning veteran players, especially.
Right.
So I think there's a certain, I think there's a certain threshold that just to have been on this staff with the responsibility Sorensen had, that he surely has already crossed, of just like being a substance guy. He strikes me as a substance guy. Not everybody is a substance guy. And I think that's important. Now, he's got to be a smart guy. In-game adjustments, that stuff's really critical. How was he under pressure? We don't know. But I thought I like him. I like him. I think he's got a shot. You know, I think a lot of times you can get caught up in the new coach with all the sayings. And it's like, I don't care. That stuff doesn't translate to coaching success. So I appreciate that he kind of is who he is and is comfortable with it and doesn't feel like he needs to tell everybody why he's the right guy for the job. They gave him the job. He's going to do the job. If they hadn't given it to him, he would have kept the other job. But since they gave it to him, he's fired. He's going to do the job. Like
I know, and I felt a little guilty
of low maintenance.
I felt a little guilty asking them that question because I know the answer. You know what I mean? I usually like to ask questions that I don't know the answer. I know the answer. The answer is the players liked him. He knows the defense. They like Chris Kasarik. They wanted to maintain that continuity with their defense. If they had gone outside the building, you got another guy brought in to coach somebody else's defense with somebody else's D-line coach, somebody else's linebacker coach, somebody else's secondary coach. You know, I think if you're going to get true buy-in and have a situation that is healthy and works, I think you have to have a guy, if you're going to go continuity and go with it from within and don't ask somebody else from the outside to come in, learn your system, adapt to everything. And then when it doesn't go well, it's like, well, we'll just blame that guy. To me, the Niners regressed run D because they lost good run defenders. And they added Hargrave, who's not a great run defender either. He's a pass rusher. So they spent their money on Hargrave. That meant they couldn't spend their money on Aziz. He was good against the run. Ebukam, good against the run. Jimmy Ward, good against the run. Emmanuel Mosley, good against the run. Hassan Ridgeway, good against the run. They all walked out the door. So then they suddenly, surprise, surprise, 5 good run defenders walk out the door. You're not as good against the run. So, I think it's personnel. I think it's personnel when you win. I think it's personnel when you lose. I think it's personnel that caused them to regress against the run. And if they're better this year against the run, it won't be because of Sorensen or his plan. It'll be because of the, not the X's and the O's, the Jimmys and the Joes.
Well, to that end, I'll say this is the last thing I'll say because I saw every couple times a week you get a chance to respond to this comment, which somebody again I see in the chat here that says Kyle Shanahan's a good OC, but he's not a good head coach. Whether or not Kyle Shanahan, he's not head coach material. He's not head coach material. That's the comment. Now I'm not going to rip that one comment, but this general conversation that happens with Kyle, there is a mountain of evidence that says he is a very good head coach, a mountain of evidence. Now, is he a Super Bowl winning head coach? We'll find out. You got to actually win one to be a Super Bowl winning head coach. But this idea that, and some people do have this opinion because they get frustrated with him. So I don't know if it's a fully authentic opinion or if it's just like a way to cut him down a little bit. The idea that he's nothing more than an OC, I'm not even sure if it's worth addressing.
No.
Okay, knows the answer.
I mean,
fine, then I'm
I
done.
mean,
it is.
I don't think it's worth addressing.
We can nitpick. I am all for nitpicking because that's the fun of this thing. Let's talk about that third down call in the second quarter. But he is a superior head coach to most head coaches. The evidence is in.
Yeah,
the evidence is in.
And as somebody who goes into the room and talks to the players, and I don't know if this matters because, it's like asking the students if they like the teacher. They may like teachers that aren't great teachers. They may like teachers that are just, okay teachers that they think are cool. But there's no whispering in corners of the room like, we don't believe in this guy. If anything, it's like they have total belief in this guy. And I think really what it comes down to is that when they watch film together, Kyle doesn't coach like, do this, do that. He tells them why they're doing this and doing that. And when you tell people why they're doing it and kind of let them behind the curtain and show them your mentality and your mindset, you get more buy-in. And I think that really is when he watches film with the team, he doesn't just say, hey, do this, do it this way. It's like, hey, this is what we're trying to get accomplished. This is the defender we're trying to isolate. This is why we're doing this. This is why that Christian, you carry out this fake the best you can because we're looking for the tunnel screen on the other side to Debo. And if you carry out that fake, the linebacker is going to bite and Debo's going to have one guy to beat. And Debo, you give me the first 3 steps at a breakneck speed because if you do, and he carries out that backside fake, you are going to be in the clear and you're taking this one to the house. Well, and then they see it and all of a sudden it all comes together and the buy-in becomes that much greater. And I just think Kyle is really a great play caller, schemer, deviser. And I think he wins over players on both sides of the line of scrimmage by how he goes through film, how he critiques things. And he's an all-in football guy. So I haven't seen any players really that are like, yeah, well, that guy doesn't know, not that they're going to say it, but that, guy, you're in the room.
But his teams don't play like that either. His teams don't play like a group of people that
don't believe
aren't being led properly.
Right. And they play. The other thing I always look for, and I don't know how big this is, but I always look for, are guys flying around? Is there high energy? Do the Niner teams that he coaches bring it every Sunday? And outside of a game here or there, I would say in this entire tenure has been defined by Niner teams that really do bring that energy and play at a high emotional peak most of the time. All right, that's going to do it for us. What do you got cooking the rest of the day?
One last thing, Larry?
Yeah.
Goodbye. I mean, I've said one last thing. We both said for the last 27 minutes. That's right. So
that's right.
Let's see. That's it. That's good.
That's it.
It's
all right, everybody.
Outside. I'm going to go outside.
There you go. Guys going outside, everybody. Look for them in your neighborhood. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to all the sponsors. Thanks to Guy. Thanks to all you guys. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.